Good morning. We are doing Bellwork for Monday, Tuesday, March 29th, March 30th. Today we're going to be, for the first 2 days, we're going to be looking at literary elements. We're going to be looking at setting and the plot. So we're going to be looking at our text, and then we're going to be identifying these questions and the answers. Which of the following best describes the setting? I know that the setting means the time and place that something takes place. So it could be in modern times, it could be in futuristic times, it could be in historical times, it could be in the past times. So I know that when I'm talking about the time period, that's kind of what I'm looking for. I also know the place is the location. So we're going to be looking at setting, and we're going to be looking at plot today. All right, question 2, which detail from the text helps the readers infer the setting? So it gives us a clue about the setting. And then question 3, how might the story have turned out differently had it been set in the distant past? So I know it's not in the past. So it's got to be either in the future or in the current time, modern time, because it says, imagine what would happen if it was in the distant past. And which of the following best describes the setting? All right, so I know setting is the time and place that the story. All right, pitch black. The echo of the buzzard rings through the air as the crowd's excitement deflates like a balloon. I watch as my classmates walk to the locker room in defeat. The loyal fans file through the double doors and into the parking lot. I soon find myself nearly alone for all the children returning for coats or mittens they left behind. But for the children returning for coats and mittens left behind. Mom and Dad had told me if I wanted to travel with my soccer team, I would have to earn my way. Luckily, Coach Parr is our neighbor and pretty agreeable. For the last few home games, she has allowed me to stay after to clean the stadium to earn some extra cash. I put on my headphones, cranked up my favorite playlist, and get to work. I wander up and down the bleachers, collecting recyclables and items for the lost and found. I occasionally step into a piece of chewed gum. Just as my favorite song starts to play, the entire stadium goes black. I blink over and over, trying to adjust my eyes to the dark. I couldn't believe it. Coach Parr had closed up the gym without me. She always calls my name several times to make sure I've been picked up before leaving herself. I roll my eyes in frustration and disbelief. Why hadn't I thought to turn my music down a bit? I'm grateful for the creepy red glow of the exit signs as they light my way to the bottom level of the bleachers. What in the world will I tell my parents? I knew if I tried leaving, the alarms would sound alerting the police. I need to get a hold of my parents, but how? I suddenly remember I had thrown a few phones into the lost and found basket earlier in my cleaning routine. I hold my arms out in front of me to keep from bumping into anything as I scuffle toward the lost and found bucket. I try each one, hoping to find one without a password protection. Once I finally find a usable phone, I hold my breath and dial my mom's cell phone number. All right, so what is the following best describes the setting of the passage? An empty football stadium on a warm summer evening, a dark soccer field on a winter night, an empty basketball stadium on a cold night. All right, so let's see. Okay. All right, well, you know what? I mean, buzzers, I know that. Well, I mean, sometimes a football field might have that, so maybe that's not good enough. Went out the double doors into the parking lot, returning for coats and mittens. Well, if they're getting coats and mittens, then I know it's not a warm summer night, but it could be a winter night and it could be a cold night. So now I'm going to eliminate that and B and C. Okay, so I'm still going to be looking, but if it's inside, I know a soccer ball is not inside, but a basketball stadium is. All right, C. Number 2, which detail from the text helps the readers infer the setting of the passage? Luckily, Coach Parr was pretty agreeable. That doesn't tell me anything about the setting. I found myself nearly alone for the children returning for coats or mittens they'd left behind. Okay, well, for the left alone, but for the children returning for coats or mittens they left behind. Okay, I mean that could be a possibility. I put on my headphones and crank up my favorite playlist and get to work. Well, that could be anything, but returning for coats and mittens they left behind, I think B is going to give me my clue. All right, you're going to answer 3 and 4 the same way. All right, now we're looking at waiting on a response. Okay, we're going to, again, which of the following best describes this setting? Which story from the text helps the reader understand that the story takes place in the past? So there's my time in the past. So what are some clues? All of the following are examples of how the story would change if it was written in modern times, except, no, that means not. And which sentence from the text best helps the reader understand, understand the setting? Okay, so which sentence helps the reader understand setting? Okay, all right, so I need to be paying attention to all my clues about the setting. Waiting on a response. I sat perched on the stoop outside our front door. I remember thinking the mailman would never arrive for his daily delivery. I ran inside every few minutes to check the time on my grandmother's big wall clock. Time seemed to crawl by as I waited for 12:05. Our mailman may be old and grumpy, but he is very punctual. Each time I return from checking the clock, I plop down on the scorching pavement. Okay, scorching pavement, that helps me right there with some clues. I stretched my legs out long and imagined the sun was baking them into warm cherry pies. Okay, so the sun, all right. Just when I thought I could wait no longer, the mailman rounded the corner with his bag bouncing against his hip in the rhythm of his long strides. He once chided me for running down the street to greet him. He had scrunched up his old wrinkly face and told me if I ever interrupt him again, he would have a word with my parents. I couldn't risk getting in trouble with my parents any more this week, so I waited near my porch. Okay, well, I know where porches are. I clicked my ankles together as I waited. The mailman wiped sweat from his brow and pulled out a stack of letters, one of which I knew was mine. I recognized the penmanship. It was the writing of my best friend. She moved 2 towns away earlier this fall. We missed each other terribly. We had planned on visiting regularly, but I wasn't allowed to ride my bike all that far, and my parents said the car was only for Sundays. That's interesting. Our grand plans had been reduced to letter writing. Once a week, I received a lengthy letter from my friend. I held the letter to my heart before ripping it open. Out came a beautiful letter and 3 shiny quarters. I couldn't believe she sent me that kind of money. Where had it come from? Okay, so if she's thinking 3 shiny quarters is a lot of money, okay. Where had it come from? I read her letter closely until I found where she explained the enclosed money. She wrote that last weekend her family had taken a trip to the local theater to see a moving picture. Ooh, moving pictures. Okay, that gives me a big clue. The actress had reminded her of me, and she couldn't wait another second for me to see the movie and write to her my thoughts. She listed at least a dozen questions for me to answer once I had seen the movie. I folded her letters up neatly and ran to beg my parents to take me to the theater. All right, so let's look to see. Which of the following best describes the setting? A warm summer day. Well, scorching pavement, sitting on my porch. So that lets me know she's home. Well, I don't think it's... Okay, this could be a possibility. A cool autumn day, a warm summer day in the park. Well, it said her porch, so I wouldn't say that. So I would say A is my correct answer. All right, number 2. Which sentence from the text best helps the reader understand the story takes place in the past? Well, I can see that because they only drive their car on Sundays. 3 quarters was a lot of money. Moving pictures is how they used to describe movies. We don't say moving pictures anymore. All right. Time seemed to crawl by as I waited till 12:05. No. She wrote that last weekend her family had taken a trip to the local theater to see a moving picture. That's a possibility. I folded her letters up neatly and ran to beg my parents to take me to the theater. Well, that could be current today. So B, the local theater to see a moving picture. All right, thank you.